I wasn't supposed to be there. Leslie had flown out to California 2 days early for her company's 10-year anniversary event, something extravagant, hosted at a rented estate nestled somewhere in wine country. She said it was going to be a big deal, with executives flying in from different branches, catered dinners, professional photographers, even a live jazz trio. She told me not to worry about attending, said it was more of a team thing. "You'd be bored," she said over the phone, laughing softly. "It's mostly networking and PowerPoint recaps." I almost listened to her. Almost. But something inside me, I don't know, maybe it was intuition, or maybe it was the fact that she hadn't said "I miss you" in over a week, made me book a flight. It wasn't some big romantic gesture. I didn't come with a plan to sweep her off her feet. I just missed my wife and wanted to see her smile when I showed up. That was the vision in my head: surprise her with a kiss, clink glasses together under string lights, take a late walk back to the hotel, maybe laugh about her coworkers. Nothing dramatic. Just simple, quiet love. I should have known better. I landed in San Francisco around noon, rented a car, and took the long, scenic route up the coast. The estate was stunning, classic California mission-style architecture with terracotta tiles and white stucco walls, surrounded by vineyards and olive trees. Dozens of cars were parked in a gravel loop outside the main courtyard, and people in semi-formal attire were milling around with wine glasses in hand. The entrance was open, so I walked right in. I heard her voice before I saw her. Leslie's laugh always stood out. It was confident, clear, polished like the rest of her. She was standing with a group near the back patio, just past a long table draped in white cloth and set with hors d'oeuvres. Her heels clicked on the stone as she shifted her weight, one hand on her hip, her glass raised slightly. She was in her element. I slowed as I approached. I wanted to watch her for a second longer, unnoticed. She looked beautiful. Hair up, delicate silver earrings catching the light. The navy dress she wore curved along her shoulders like it was tailored for that exact setting. She was laughing as she spoke, in full rhythm with her group, people who clearly adored her, or at least played along well. That's when she said it. "Okay, but remember Denver?" she asked, leaning in, smirking at the guy beside her. "That conference where the hotel accidentally upgraded us? Room 807? Laughter erupted. She sipped her drink and added, "Let's just say there was more action in those sheets than at the breakout session on HR strategy." I stopped cold. The group howled with laughter. The man next to her, a tall guy in a gray vest, clean-shaven, a little too charming, gave her a look. Not a colleague look. Not even a flirty look. It was familiarity. The kind of look people share when there's a shared secret behind it. A memory that isn't just a memory, it's a connection. She touched his arm lightly as they laughed, the kind of touch people don't notice unless they're looking for it. And I was looking for it. She didn't see me at first. I was standing a few feet away behind a few mingling guests. I don't even know if I was breathing. Then someone turned, noticed me, and said, "Oh, Leslie? I think your husband just arrived." Her eyes found mine. And in that half second I saw it, the flicker. Her smile froze just a little too long before it shifted. It was like watching someone change masks. She broke away from the group casually, walking toward me like nothing was out of place. "Nick," she exclaimed, opening her arms like she hadn't just made a joke about cheating in front of a dozen people. "Everyone, this is my husband." He flew out to surprise me. The group turned with polite smiles and raised eyebrows. One woman nodded, eyes flicking between us. The man in the vest, he stayed back, sipping his drink, avoiding eye contact. Leslie didn't introduce him. She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was different. "I didn't expect you until Monday," she said softly. I forced a smile. "Changed my mind." "That's so sweet," she said, looping her arm through mine and steering us toward the edge of the patio. "I was just telling them about a silly hotel mix-up during a conference. You remember Denver, right?" "Yeah," I said, voice flat. "You said they gave you a bigger room." She laughed again, but it wasn't real this time. It was a joke. I was just being dramatic. I nodded. Behind us, the laughter had died down. A few people awkwardly sipped their drinks and walked toward the cheese board. The man in the vest had vanished. I don't remember much else about that evening. Everything after that moment felt muted. Leslie made introductions, smiled brightly, touched my arm a little too often, overcorrected. Her grip on me was tight, like she was trying to make sure no one else noticed how unsteady the ground had suddenly become. We stayed for dinner. The estate was lit with hundreds of hanging lights like some curated dreamscape. Wine was served in long-stemmed glasses and people gave speeches about milestones and team resilience. Leslie leaned into my shoulder during dessert, whispered that she was glad I came, called me sweet. But her voice didn't have warmth, it had urgency. Like she was trying to fix something without showing the cracks. Later, in the car, she said, "You're quiet." I kept my eyes on the road. "Just tired." "You didn't like the party?" "It was fine." She hesitated, then reached for my hand. "Nick, that thing I said, it was stupid. It was just a joke. Didn't sound like one." She turned to face the window. "It didn't mean anything." I didn't respond. Because that's the thing no one tells you about moments like these. When they happen, there's no explosion. No dramatic confession. Just a slow unraveling. One thread pulled loose and everything that held you together starts to give way. The silence in that car ride was louder than anything she could have said. Because deep down, I already knew. I didn't need confirmation. I didn't need names or dates or hotel receipts. I had heard the way she laughed. I had seen the way he looked at her. I had felt the way her fingers hesitated on mine. It was all there. I slept beside her that night in the hotel bed, inches away but 100 miles apart. She said goodnight, turned away, and I lay staring at the ceiling until morning. By the time the sun broke through the curtains, I knew. Whatever I thought we had, it had changed. And no amount of pretending would make it feel whole again. After we flew home, things didn't go back to normal. Not for me, anyway. Leslie acted like nothing had happened. She was unusually affectionate for a few days, morning coffee in bed, random kisses on the cheek, asking about my day like we were newlyweds again. I went along with it at first. Nodded. Smiled. Laughed in all the right places. But inside, I was stuck in that moment on the patio, hearing her joke about a hotel room and watching how quickly she rewrote the narrative the second she saw me. I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unsee it. And most of all, I couldn't stop replaying everything that had led up to that night. That's when it started, the rewinding. The mental scavenger hunt. You know that feeling when you lose your keys and start retracing your steps, playing detective in your own house? That's what I did with our marriage. Only instead of looking for keys, I was looking for cracks, tiny fractures I'd ignored, justified, explained away. I found more than I wanted to. It started small. I remembered a necklace. A delicate silver one she brought back from a conference in San Diego last fall. She told me it was a vendor gift, just a thank you for speaking on a panel. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But now I remembered how she kept touching it, how she wore it more often than anything else in her jewelry box. How she smiled when she said, "It's simple, but it means something." Back then, I thought she meant it reminded her of feeling accomplished. Yeah? I wasn't so sure. Then I thought about her phone. Always face down. Always on silent. Always charging in the guest room, which had quietly turned into her office/storage space. I used to chalk it up to her being a boundary person, her word, not mine. She needed space, she'd say. Needed time to decompress from people. I admired that, actually. But now it didn't feel like boundaries. It felt like a border. A wall. One I hadn't realized I'd been standing on the wrong side of. I started noticing other things. There were the trips. The business trips that used to feel like a hassle, something she'd grown about while packing. Lately, though, she started looking forward to them. Time to recharge, she'd say. A change of pace. She'd buy new clothes right before leaving, spritz on perfume I didn't recognize, and send selfies from hotel lobbies like a teenager on spring break. One night, maybe 2 months before the party, she flew to Austin for a client summit. I remember calling her room late just to say goodnight. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. She texted back half an hour later, "Sorry. Was down at the bar with the team." "Love you, Red Heart." I remember smiling at the time, thinking, good for her. She's loosening up. Now I realize I was trying to make excuses before I even knew I needed them. Even her conversations had shifted. She used to vent about work nonstop, annoying coworkers, demanding clients, internal politics. But then suddenly everything was fine. More than fine, actually. Great. She'd smile to herself while texting, then look up like she'd just remembered I was there. One night, I caught her grinning at something on her phone, and when I asked what it was, she said, "Oh, just a funny meme from the team Slack." I nodded. But the smile wasn't the kind you make at a meme. It was the kind you make when someone texts you something personal, something private. Something real. The next memory that surfaced was one I hadn't thought about in months. We were at dinner with friends, and someone had brought up the topic of temptation, half joking, half serious. One of the guys asked, "If you had a one-night free pass, who would you use it on?" People laughed. Names were tossed around. Actors, musicians, exes. When it got to Leslie, she took a sip of wine, smiled, and said, "No pass needed. I travel enough to make it work without consequences." The table laughed. I laughed too. It sounded like a joke. But her tone, it was casual, too casual. Like she'd already thought it through. Another thing that started gnawing at me, the perfume. That night in California when she hugged me outside the estate, I caught a scent I didn't recognize. It was floral, sharp, not the kind she usually wore. When I mentioned it later, she shrugged and said, "Sample from the hotel." Pretty nice, right? But the next morning it was gone, no bottle, no sample, no explanation. Just a scent I couldn't place and a memory I couldn't shake. Then there were the holidays. She missed Thanksgiving last year, claiming a flight delay. I spent the evening with my sister's family making excuses for why my wife was stuck in an airport when I knew full well she hated airports and would have rebooked in a second. But she was oddly calm that night, texting me between delays, sending selfies from the terminal, joking about overpriced pretzels. Except she never sent a boarding pass. Never FaceTimed. Just a lot of messages, spaced perfectly apart. I thought I was being paranoid until I checked the airline records through our shared rewards account a few days ago. No flight booked. None. Not even a canceled one. She hadn't been at the airport. She hadn't even left town. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding my laptop like it might burst into flames. That was the moment it all crystallized. The late nights. The private calls. The soft sighs when she thought I wasn't listening. The fights we didn't have because she stopped caring enough to argue. The way she'd flinch when I reached for her hand in public. The way she started showering in the guest bathroom after workouts. The way our Sunday mornings, once slow, warm, in asterisk mate, had turned into her slipping out for Pilates and not coming back until noon. Even the way she started saying I more than we. It was a slow erosion. One I hadn't noticed because it didn't happen all at once. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Deliberate. Drip by drip. And I had let it happen. Because that's the other truth that hit me like a freight train. I didn't want to see it. I'd chosen not to. Because seeing it meant facing it. And facing it meant accepting that the life I thought I had was no longer real. The hardest part wasn't the suspicion. It was the hindsight. Looking back and realizing how many times I'd been standing in front of the truth and instead of acknowledging it, I just blinked and turned away. I thought I was being trusting. I thought I was being a good husband. But now I see it for what it was. I was being lied to. And I was helping her do it. Some point, suspicion stops being an itch and becomes a wound. It bleeds into everything, every conversation, every glance, every silence. I couldn't even look at Leslie without wondering which version of her I was seeing, the wife who smiled at me over coffee or the woman who once made a joke about room 807 while her husband stood just out of *T. I stopped asking questions, not because I didn't want answers, but because I already knew I wouldn't believe them. That's when I went looking for proof. Not passive clues. Not body language. Real evidence. Something undeniable. It started with an old tablet. We bought it years ago, a shared device that sat in the kitchen for recipes, grocery lists, FaceTime calls with my niece. At some point, it got replaced, tossed in a drawer, forgotten. But I remembered that it had been synced to her cloud at one point. Photos. Notes. Maybe messages. Most people forget how much tech remembers. I didn't tell her I was looking for it. I waited until she left for a late meeting, one of those suddenly frequent dinner with leadership things, and I dug through the office closet. There it was, half buried under a pile of conference swag and old binders. Battery was dead. I charged it in the garage and waited. When it finally powered on, I felt like I was handling a live wire. The home screen was still logged into her old profile. No password change. No lockout. I opened the Photos app first. Most of it was normal selfies, *TS of decor, dumb memes from years ago. But then I found the archived album, buried deep in the recently deleted bin, which people often forget to empty. That's where I found the first image. A champagne bottle in an ice bucket, sitting on a hotel nightstand. A neatly folded robe with a handwritten card on top. "Welcome back, Elle." Next photo. A room service tray with 2 wine glasses, a dessert for 2, and a man's watch sitting next to the napkin. Not mine. Then the kicker. A close-up *T of someone's legs stretched across a hotel bed. A woman's legs. Her legs. I knew them by the way she crossed her ankles, the small tattoo on the inside of her left foot. The same one she used to joke about removing. I used to trace it with my finger. The timestamp said January. The Denver conference. The last file wasn't a photo. It was a video. I watched it. It wasn't long. Just 16 seconds. The camera was shaky, like it had been propped on a dresser. I saw her. She was laughing, lying across the bed in that same robe from the earlier photo. Then he walked into frame, the man from the party. Same build, Same smirk. They kissed. Quick, casual. Familiar. Like they'd done it 1,000 times. She said something and he laughed. She looked happy. Not guilty. Not hesitant. Happy. I sat back, the tablet still in my lap, my fingers locked around the edge of the screen like it might run away if I let go. This was it. The moment every suspicious spouse thinks they're prepared for but never truly is. Because once you see it, once it becomes visual, documented, permanent, there's no going back. It stops being a bad feeling and becomes your reality. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even breathe for a while. I just stared at the screen like it was a door to a parallel life I never knew she was living. After a few minutes, I closed everything, copied the files onto a flash drive, encrypted them and backed them up to cloud storage under a dummy email. I made 3 copies and stashed them in separate drives. One in the garage, one in my car's glove box, and one hidden in a safe deposit box I opened the next morning during my lunch break. Paranoid? Maybe. But I wasn't going to be caught flat-footed again. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Couldn't. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed to be in control for once. This wasn't going to be some messy kitchen argument at 11 p.m. with tears and deflections and it's not what it looks like. I wasn't going to give her the chance to twist it, dilute it, blame it on stress or emotional distance. I knew what I saw, and now I had the receipts. I spent the next few days gathering more. Quietly, I checked her laptop. She'd gotten smarter about deleting messages, but people always forget their search histories. I found emails to hotel concierges, dinner reservations in cities she wasn't supposed to be in, and once, painfully, a digital note titled "Things I'd Say to You If I Could." It wasn't addressed to me. There were lines about stolen time, about wanting to be honest but not wanting to lose what felt real. I read the whole thing, sitting on the floor of our bedroom while she was at yoga. Then I checked our smart home app. We had a connected thermostat, a doorbell camera, smart speakers in most rooms, stuff we bought for convenience, never realizing how much those systems log. I scrolled through access logs. Times she unlocked the door, disarmed the alarm. Patterns started to emerge. Days she claimed to be away but had clearly returned home for a few hours in between meetings. I enabled audio recording on the speakers. Discreetly. Later that week, I caught a 5-minute clip of her on the phone, talking softly in the guest room. She said his name, first name only. She said, "I miss you too." She said, "He has no idea." I saved that too. Every night, I lay next to her, pretending to sleep while my mind stitched everything together. I memorized the timeline. I matched phone records with travel. I started creating a private folder on my work computer labeled estate planning. It was a lie, of course, but in a way it wasn't. I was planning the estate of a life I no longer recognized. She made love to me twice during that period. Once on a Sunday morning, another on a random Tuesday night. Both times, she kissed me like nothing was wrong. Both times, I watched her carefully, looking for some sign, some flicker of guilt or conflict, but there was none. She had built her own version of the truth and moved into it like a second home. I was just a guest now, placeholder. One night, as she showered, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. I looked hollow, not broken exactly, just removed, like someone playing the role of a husband while the real man had quietly slipped out the back door. That's when I knew what I had to do. I had the proof. Now it was time to prepare for what came next. There's something about knowing a secret that changes you. It doesn't just weigh on you, it reshapes you. You start moving differently, thinking ahead, preparing not just for conversations but for moments. Calculated silence becomes your armor. I stopped being a husband and started becoming an observer. I didn't tell anyone. Not friends, not family. I didn't cry or rage or disappear into some cliché. What I did was simple. I started planning. Leslie had no idea. If anything, she seemed relieved in those days. I wasn't questioning her anymore. No side glances. No probing about her schedule. She thought she had one. That I'd either moved on or, more likely, never suspected in the first place. I played my role so well that she leaned into it. offering up weekend plans with a little more detail than usual, initiating conversations she used to avoid, even sending me little heart emojis during the workday like she used to. I responded in kind. Always kind. That's what kept her off guard. Meanwhile, I got to work. The first thing I did was sync her new phone. It was easier than I thought. A lot of our digital life was still entangled. Shared cloud accounts, auto-saved passwords, calendars that hadn't been unlinked since our second anniversary. I started small, looking at her app activity, browsing her call logs. Eventually, I installed remote access software that mirrored her device onto an old laptop I kept in the garage. Every photo, every message, every app she opened, I saw it. She didn't use her personal email for anything risky. She was too careful for that. But her calendar told stories. Dinner reservations under pseudonyms. Travel plans booked from a secondary Gmail account. I cross-referenced those with her messages, her maps history, and the metadata embedded in her photos. Patterns began to form. Same hotel chains. Same cities. Same man. Always him. He even had a nickname in her phone. J. Wellness ONF. As if labeling him with a work context would protect the truth. I documented everything. Every screenshot *T. Every GPS ping. Every time-stamped text. I built a digital portfolio, folders organized by month, cross-referenced against bank statements and travel itineraries. I pulled CCTV images from our doorbell camera that captured her coming home midday in workout clothes, only to leave 20 minutes later wearing heels and makeup. I didn't need a private investigator. I had the cloud, a digital footprint, and time. Next came the house. We had a smart system, speakers, thermostat, locks, cameras. She thought of it as convenience. I reconfigured it as surveillance. I adjusted the settings so that every motion-triggered audio clip in shared areas uploaded to my personal drive. When she made calls from the kitchen or paced the hallway, I caught parts of conversations. Fragments of real in * Macy whispered in a tone I hadn't heard in months. One night, she told him she missed his mind. Another, she laughed and said, he wouldn't understand, even if I told him. Nick just wants things to feel normal again. She was right about one thing. I did want things to feel normal, but not anymore. I wanted clarity. I wanted closure. And most of all, I wanted control over how this would end. So I started rehearsing. Not words, I didn't want to say much when the time came, but logistics, timing, location, emotional distance. I knew I couldn't do this in the middle of a fight. I didn't want drama or yelling or her crying about how complicated it had become. I wanted it clean, precise. I chose the moment. She had a business trip coming up, Austin again. 3 days. Same company, same itinerary, different lie. She said it was a strategy workshop. She printed an agenda and left it on the kitchen table like some kind of prop. I scanned it, memorized it, tossed it. I already knew the truth. He would be there. The same man from the party, the videos, the voice notes. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Instead, I prepped the house. While she was packing, I changed all the smart locks and kept the old key fob functional on her keychain, temporarily. I set up motion detection cameras in the hallway and the bedroom. Nothing that would raise flags. Just enough to verify absence. I swept every corner of our digital presence, removing traces of my activity, clearing caches, encrypting my local backups. If she came looking, she wouldn't find anything. Not yet. I also met with a lawyer. Not for divorce. Not yet. I wanted options. Information. My attorney, recommended by a friend who went through something similar, was sharp and unemotional. I showed him what I had. He said, "You've already done half my job." He advised me to hold off. Said that the more I collected, the stronger my leverage. In cases like ours, image mattered. Leslie's career, her brand, was built on reputation. She was the face of HR compliance, employee wellness, and executive ethics. Ironic, I know. If this broke publicly, it wouldn't just end our marriage. It would end her credibility. I wasn't looking for revenge, but I also wasn't going to let her walk away from this without feeling the weight of what she'd done. So I waited. And as I waited, I started preparing my exit. I found a lakeside cabin in Minnesota. Isolated. Quiet. A place we'd talked about visiting one day but never did. I rented it for 2 weeks, then extended it to a month. I didn't tell anyone. I routed mail to a P.O. box and set up auto-pay on everything. Canceled unnecessary subscriptions. Froze joint accounts temporarily, just long enough to prevent surprises. I started packing things in the garage, boxes labeled as old office supplies, camping gear, storage. Inside, personal records, keepsakes, essentials. Nothing she'd notice missing unless she looked very, very closely. She didn't. She was too busy texting. Too busy preparing for a trip that was supposed to be just business. 2 nights before she left, we had dinner together. I made her favorite blackened salmon with lemon risotto. We drank a bottle of Pinot she'd brought back from Napa the year before. She talked about promotions, future plans, how refreshed she felt lately. I smiled. Asked thoughtful questions. Toasted to her success. Inside, I felt hollow. But on the outside, I looked like the man she thought she was fooling. The night before her flight, I lay beside her in bed, listening to her breathing slow, watching the ceiling fan spin, counting how many lies could fit between "I love you" and "good night." I didn't sleep. The next morning, she left before sunrise. Kissed me on the cheek, whispered, "I'll text you when I land." I nodded. The door closed. I exhaled. And got to work. She didn't know I was watching. Not directly. I wasn't sitting in a dark room with headphones, breathing heavy while a live feed played out in grainy black and white. It wasn't like that. It was more clinical. Distant. Her synced phone sent me updates every few hours, a silent stream of location pings, message timestamps, and audio files that auto-uploaded to my cloud. All I had to do was wait. And I was very, very good at waiting. When Leslie landed in Austin, she texted me a selfie from the hotel room. Made it. Long day. Room's nice. Gonna order room service and crash. I didn't respond right away. I waited an hour, then sent, "Glad you made it safe. Rest up." The photo she sent showed the corner of the room, neatly made bed, white robes, a view of downtown through a tall window. But I'd already seen the real version. Minutes before she sent that message, I'd watched the security cam feed from the hotel's side entrance, her walking in beside him. Same man. Same closeness. Same synchronized body language. They didn't look like coworkers. They looked like a couple who'd done this before. Many times. I stared at the screen in my lap and felt nothing. Not rage. Not betrayal. Just a cold, calculated quiet. Like something had finally burned out inside me and all that was left were clean edges and plans. That night, I slept for 4 hours straight. First full sleep in weeks. By morning, I was moving. Everything was already packed. I had rehearsed this moment so many times in my head that the motions felt automatic. I loaded the car. Disarmed the cameras. Shut down the mirror drives and disconnected her phone from the backup server. Reset all the smart locks. I wiped myself clean from the network like I'd never existed. Then I walked into the bedroom and placed a single white envelope on her pillow. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Just 1 page. The first sentence read, "By the time you read this, I'll be long gone." I didn't make it poetic. I didn't try to make her cry. It was factual. Precise. I told her I knew everything. The names, the places, the messages, the photos, the video. I listed dates. I referenced her calendar entries, her metadata, her location logs. I told her about the calls I'd overheard, the passwords I'd recovered, the lies she thought were clever but weren't. The final paragraph read, "Nothing about this goes back to the way it was. Not with a conversation. Not with a tear. This isn't revenge, and it's not about punishing you. It's about ending this quietly on my terms while there's still a version of me left that doesn't hate you." I placed a flash drive beside the letter, labeled with nothing but a small black sticker. On it was everything: photos, audio, logs, texts, videos. I didn't include instructions. She'd figure it out. I made one last walk through the house. Bedroom? Empty. Closet? Half full. Bookshelves? Cleared of anything I couldn't live without. Kitchen? Spotless. Guest room? Still smelled faintly like her perfume. I didn't linger. I locked the door behind me and didn't look back. The drive north was long. But it wasn't hard. Somewhere around Missouri, I stopped checking my phone. The notifications came in bursts, first a text, then another, then several missed calls. Then a voicemail. Then silence. I ignored them all. By the time I crossed into Minnesota, my phone was in airplane mode, stuffed in the glove box. The cabin sat on a ridge overlooking a still, dark lake. There were no neighbors. No Wi-Fi. No cell towers. Just a small wood stove, a mattress, and a small desk where I set up my laptop. The silence didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. That night, I opened my laptop and played a song I hadn't listened to in years, one she hated. Something slow, heavy with piano, the kind of song you can feel in your ribs. I let it fill the room while I made coffee and watched the moon slice through the trees. In the morning, I finally listened to her voicemails. There were 3. The first was short. Nick. I don't understand. What is this? Where are you? The second was longer. Please. Please call me back. I don't know what you think you saw, but I can explain. I need you to let me explain. The third broke halfway through. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just said, I don't know how to fix this, and hung up. That was 3 days ago. Since then? Silence. I know she opened the flash drive. I set a tracker on the file access logs. She viewed everything. Twice. Then downloaded the entire archive into a new folder called Personal. I imagine she sat at her hotel room desk in that robe she liked, clicking through each file, feeling her world contract with each piece of proof. She didn't try to deny it. Not really. Because there's no defense when you've been caught in 4K when the lie and the truth are staring at each other in the same sentence. The lawyers reached out on day 4. Not hers, mine. She hadn't filed anything yet. But she'd made contact. Her email to my attorney was vague, polite, and terrified. She asked for mediation. Discretion. A private path forward. She didn't mention cheating. She didn't acknowledge the flash drive. But the tone said everything. She wanted to keep it contained. Because her job? Her public image? That couldn't survive a scandal. Not with her title. Not with the public panels she sat on, the white papers she authored about integrity and leadership. Her name wasn't just a name, it was a brand. And now it was radioactive. I gave my attorney clearance to proceed. We weren't filing for divorce yet, not officially. But we were setting the terms. I wanted the house. I wanted the equity. I wanted everything she told me I didn't care about while she was building her affair in silence. And I wasn't asking. The threat was implied. The flash drive? That wasn't leverage. It was insurance. I didn't plan to use it. But she didn't know that. The next voicemail she left was calmer. Nick. I understand now. I messed up. I don't even know what to say. I want to talk. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just, please don't destroy everything. Please. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in apologies. Not anymore. On day 6, I got a call from an unknown number. It was his wife. She didn't ask questions. She didn't yell. She just said, I saw the footage. Thank you, and hung up. By the end of the week, the fallout had big asterisk N. Leslie's LinkedIn profile changed, no longer chief people officer, now just executive consultant. Her bio went quiet. The panel she was supposed to moderate next month? Reassigned. A quiet reshuffle. No public scandal. No headlines. Just a soft erasure. Exactly what she feared. Exactly what she deserved. At night, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching the wind skim across the lake like it had somewhere else to be. I let the silence hang over me like smoke. I drank cheap beer and watched the stars, wondering if she was doing the same thing in some quiet hotel room, staring at the same moon, asking the same question. How did it come to this? But I knew. It came to this the moment she looked me in the eyes and told me she loved me, then turned around and opened herself to someone else. It came to this when she rewrote history, minimized her guilt, and gambled on me never asking the right questions. I asked. And now? She gets to sit in the ruins of her choices. Alone. The silence didn't last. Within days, her texts turned frantic, apologies, long paragraphs, half confessions. Then came the lawyers. She wanted to settle quietly, avoid public damage. But my legal response was firm. I wanted the house, assets, and acknowledgement of emotional harm. She didn't fight. She couldn't. I had too much. Her career? Over. Someone leaked parts of the flash drive anonymously. She was quietly removed from panels, stepped down from her executive role. The man she cheated with? His wife filed for divorce. Their illusion collapsed fast. Friends stopped answering her calls. No drama. Just absence. One day she was at the center of everything. The next, she wasn't even a topic. I sold the house. Moved to a smaller town. Bought a lakeside property where no one knew my name. Days became simple, quiet mornings, long walks, rebuilding myself brick by brick. Family still sent photos, updates, birthday invites. Leslie remained in the group chat, her name untouched, unread. She never posted again. Never replied. I never deleted her. I didn't have to. The silence said more than any fight ever could. In it, I found peace not by erasing her, but by live.